you will.
Okay, we can show the trailer. Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Michael Pack, Pack. And if you're watching this on my 3 YouTube channels, which I magically got back in early October, or X, Twitter, or Rumble, or Rockfin, you will see his new documentary, the entirety of which I watched today. It's excellent. It's about 90 minutes. The full title of the documentary is The Last 600 Meters, the battles of Najaf and Fallujah. And at the time this happened in 2004, some of the information wasn't coming out. At least I didn't see it. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. So to see this kind of information in real life, it's very first person. There's a lot of interviews. But Michael, this is not his first rodeo. He actually has two production companies. One is Manifold Productions. The other is Palladium Pictures. So I'll put links to his website so you can check those out. But he's been doing this, producing stuff since 1977. So he's written, directed, and produced numerous award-winning, nationally broadcast documentaries, as well as corporate and educational films. I'm not going to go through his whole list, but he's done some recently. One is Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. And a lot of these shows are on PBS. I watched this current one, The Last 600 Meters, on PBS. He's also done Rickover, The Birth of Nuclear Power, Rediscovering Alexander Hamilton. I'm sure that's very timely. God in the Inner City, Rediscovering George Washington, The Fall of Newt Gingrich, Campus Culture Wars. That's very timely, it seems like. 5 stories about political correctness. So those are just some of the things. He also served from 2020 to 2021. He served as the first Senate-confirmed CEO of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAGM, and that oversees the government's 5 international broadcasting networks. So together they reach hundreds of millions of people and have a huge budget. He was also president and CEO of the Claremont Institute in Upland, and publisher for its Claremont Review of Books. So he has a varied career and done a lot of things. But what we're going to talk about specifically today, like I mentioned at the intro, is this war documentary. Pretty graphic. It's really something else to watch. But the full title, again, is The Last 600 Meters, the battles of Najaf and Fallujah. So Michael Pack, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. It's great to be with you, William.
Excellent. So for people who haven't heard your name, you have a very long, successful career. Maybe you can talk about your background leading up to something that happened 20 years ago. Maybe you can talk about the research and why you got interested in this topic and how this documentary got made.
Absolutely. Well, as you said in the intro, I've been making documentaries for decades. We've made 15 or so that have been nationally broadcast on PBS. And on the subjects that you listed, and we recently formed they were all under the aegis of Manifold Productions. We recently formed this new company, Palladium Pictures. But the film that was recently broadcast, as you say, PBS broadcast it the day before Veterans Day, November 10th, which also happened to be the Marine Corps' 250th birthday, also appropriate since these were mainly Marine battles. And that film, The Last 600 Meters, the battles of Najaf and Fallujah, have that title because a sniper says in the film, a Special Forces sniper says, "I don't make foreign policy, I deliver the last 600 meters of it," meaning what he could see through a sniper scope. We tried in this film to tell these battle stories from that point of view, of the last 600 meters, the people on the tip of the spear. So you hear in the film from people from corporals and sergeants up to the 1-star generals that are in command, but only the people in the field. We don't talk about whether the war in Iraq is good or bad or what the politics of it are, except as it affects the people in the field. And these battles were the biggest battles America has fought since Vietnam. And we think it's important to understand these battles, just like it is other battles in American history. And we tell them as a battle story, as if it were Gettysburg or Iwo Jima, what happened on the ground. And I think they're very compelling stories in their own way. And we need to understand them, both because it honors the veterans and because we're embroiled in this kind of warfare very much today, and as our allies in places like Ukraine and Gaza and elsewhere. So I think it's pretty relevant. Now you're viewers and listeners can see it on Amazon. It's streaming on Amazon, as are the other two of the other films you mentioned, both Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words, and the film about Admiral Rickover, another two great heroes of the last century. Clarence Thomas, of course, very much with us. So I got involved in this film many years ago. So the battles, as I say, took place in 2004. And I was already making a film about the war in Iraq. And we were originally going to focus on sort of technology and warfare. You may recall that the beginning of the war on terror, in Afghanistan, there was a big emphasis on high-tech warfare. Special forces went in and worked with the Northern Alliance, and they brought down the Taliban quickly with just high-tech air support. But the more I researched these battles and the war in Iraq, I saw that a lot of these battles really depended, as they always have, on the grit and valor of the people fighting them in the last 600 meters. And that these battle stories weren't being told. And so that's what we endeavored to do. And we conducted the interviews with the people in the film 3 years after the battle in 2007, when their memories were fresh and they were still young, or they were approximately the same age they were in the battle. And the way we made the film is we found the most dramatic footage of the battles. They were already 3 years old when we were making the film. And that footage would be provided both by the military cameramen, combat correspondents, and commercial still photographers, who I think were very heroic and did a brilliant job collecting the footage. And once we had the footage, then we looked for the Marines, soldiers, and others, special forces that were in the footage. So we conducted the interviews, you know this because you've seen it, obviously, but they look right at camera. They tell their story in first person about what you're seeing in the footage, and there's no narration, no commentary. You hear what it's like in the battle from the people who fought there. So we finished a version of the film in 2008, and it's principally funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And as I said, I've done many films for PBS. I thought this was just zip right in, but PBS, for various reasons, chose not to broadcast it. The only one time that happened in my entire history. And they originally said it was too pro-military, or whatever that means, and many other things over the years. But my wife and I, who is my business partner, Gina, would go back to PBS and beg them to broadcast it. And lo and behold, miraculously, this last year, they finally said yes. And I credit the current president of PBS, Paula Kerger, in having the courage to reverse 17 years of no and say yes. So after this long wait, it's finally both on the air in PBS and now streaming on Amazon and pretty soon elsewhere.
That's weird. I didn't get that feeling that it was like super pro-military for me. I thought it was just really first person. I felt like I was there. Like, wow, they're breaking down and going through these houses and stuff. Wow.
It's not pro-military. I mean, I think that, at one point, the people at PBS said I must have used, special casting or contrived to get especially articulate Marines, but I didn't. These were the Marines in the battle, and they happen to be articulate and compelling characters. And I don't think it's necessarily pro-military. It's not really a rah-rah, military film. We have a lot of the horrors of war. As you know from the film, the First Battle of Fallujah began when 4 Blackwater contractors were murdered, burned, dragged through the streets of Fallujah, and 2 of them were hung from a bridge. Hardly a pleasant thing to show to viewers, and it was that motivated the First Battle of Fallujah and begins the process that the film depicts, from the First Battle of Fallujah in the north against Sunni insurgents, then Najaf in the south against Shia insurgents, and then back to the Second Battle of Fallujah in the north.
Gotcha. I have the trailer set up. Do you want to listen to this?
It's
about 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see. Hopefully you'll get the video. I mean, the audio. Can you hear the audio?
No.
Try that again. Sometimes it's a little dicey. You gotta share it from the sitting. Let's try this.
I mean, as long as your listeners can hear it, I know what it says.
Can you hear it now?
The order is
Yes,
See,
but let's go back to the beginning, though. Now
Okay,
I can
yeah,
hear
you got it. You got it.
it.
we wanted to go. We were just waiting on the edge of a knife. When are we going to get to go?
The order is seize the city.
RPGs, small arms fire from everywhere.
I wasn't worried about, getting shot or getting wounded. I was worried about the guys to my left and right.
I told him that I wanted to go, and he looked at me and said, "Sorry, you're going to die."
There it is, just a short trailer, guys. I'll put links to the documentary in the show notes so people can share it, check it out.
And there's a longer trailer, 2-minute trailer on our website, Manifold
Okay.
Productions.
See if I can find that. I didn't mean to break up your thing, but yeah, I think that when those Blackwater guys were murdered, I think it hit the news pretty hard back then, if I remember correctly.
It was a
People might
huge
remember.
story. And it was horrifying. I mean, not only were they hung from this bridge, but insurgents celebrated and danced under their bodies. And it motivated the the military and diplomats back in Washington to decide we've got to clear the city. So the Marines went in, and because of the way the media had manipulated it, it made the Marines look particularly violent. And because of that international outcry about their violence, not the violence of the insurgents who had killed the contractors, they were ordered to stop halfway into the battle into Fallujah, stayed there for a long time while kind of some fighting went on, and finally pulled back. And they handed Fallujah to the so-called Fallujah Brigade, essentially the insurgents, and they were allowed to run it their way. And it was quickly became an armed depot, a place for insurgents to stop and rest on their way to other parts of Iraq. It was sort of a home for Zarqawi, who was in charge of Al Qaeda in Iraq at the time. And then there were torture chambers there, and they finally conducted beheadings there. And the insurgents were proud of the beheadings. They posted them on their website, and part of them is in the film. And it was those atrocities that finally motivated the second Battle of Fallujah, when the Marines then went into Fallujah to clear it a second time, this time going house to house, north to south of the town. But because of the negative press of the first time, they announced ahead of time that they were going in and asked all of the civilians to clear out, and maybe 80-90% of them did, and they went to nearby Ramadi. But of course, the leadership of the insurgents left too and also went to Ramadi. So they cleared the houses, but the only people left were some civilians and sort of insurgent foot soldiers who were just going to kill as many Marines before they died and went to heaven and got their reward. So they were hopped up on amphetamines and ready to kill as many as they could, and making it a particularly gruesome and difficult battle.
And for people who don't know the mapping of the area, Fallujah is about 20 minutes, I think it's west of Baghdad. So it's kind of a suburb.
Yeah.
I think it's considered a suburb. Yeah.
It's west of Baghdad, so yes, sometimes called this. It's in the sort of northwest of Iraq. That's right.
Yeah. And it's also like when they said people cleared out, the 250,000 people cleared out. Like it was good. They knew it was going to be a big event, right? I mean, I think they mentioned 7 battalions, which is roughly 7,000 Marines, or like a pretty substantial force was going in house to house combat, right?
House to house, and we depict a lot of that. We follow one squad through there, and then finally this very, very dramatic scene at the end of the Battle of Fallujah at Hell House, where Marines are pinned and other Marines have to go in and rescue them and risk their lives. And it's, I think, a very amazing scene. I mean, the insurgents have these Marines trapped in one of these buildings that they're clearing, and they're shooting down from the upper story at these wounded Marines that they don't kill but leave wounded to lure other Marines in to rescue them and then wound them. A not uncommon insurgent tactic that tends to work until finally other Marines have to sort of get through another entrance that is barred, and they have to take their Kevlar off. So they go in unarmed into this kind of kill zone and to rescue the Marines, which they finally do, crossing this crossfire, this kill zone 4 times to pull the Marines out. And over a very long firefight where they finally pull all the wounded Marines out before the house is leveled by tank fire and other fire. So It's a really gruesome firefight.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in the film, or somebody mentioned, the intent of these insurgents was to kind of get as close to the fighters as possible. That was kind of their fighting tactic. So it wasn't like a sniper war; it was like hand to hand, close combat, right?
It was hand to hand, and that was true too. In the middle battle between these two battles of Fallujah, we focus on this battle of Najaf in the south against Shia insurgents, the Mahdi militia. Najaf is one of the holiest cities in Shia Islam, and it has the Grand Ali Shrine. And the insurgents they're fighting virtually hand to hand in this weird cemetery, huge multi-leveled up above ground, and then with catacombs down below, and then finally in these hotels that are kind of leveled, and they're in the basement. And at one point, one of the people in the film, Seth Moulton, who is now a Democratic congressman from Massachusetts,
Oh,
tells
interesting.
the story that one of the people in one of the squads trapped in this basement runs across an insurgent, and it's so close that they cannot get their weapons out. And of course, there's no air support because they're underground. And they pull out their knives, and it's like a knife fight. It could have been from hundreds of years ago, until the Marine stabs the insurgent in the eye with his knife and kills them. A brutal, low-tech fight that relies on the grit and toughness of Marines as it has for hundreds of years.
Right, and this is kind of where the whole split in Islam occurred, right? Was at in around this area where like the bloodline of Muhammad. Somebody
That's
got
right.
killed, right? And then it became Shia and Sunni, right? That's
Yeah,
what I
it
remember.
depends on who you think, where you think the bloodline, as you say, comes after Muhammad. I mean, does it go through, Ali, or does it go through his direct children? And and that's the Shia Sunni split. And as you know, the main center, not the center, but the most powerful Shia country is Iran, and they're the largest sponsors of Shia insurgents, and they were really supporting the Mahdi militia in Najaf as well.
And that was kind of like another bloody thing, but the imam at the time, I think it was it Muqtada al-Sadr or one of the imams? No, it was Ayatollah Sistani or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Can you tell about him and how the fighting kind of came to an end there?
Well, Muqtada al-Sadr was the leader of the Mahdi army that were insurgents at the time. I mean, he's gone in and out of Iraqi government since, but he was the insurgent. He was attacking American troops, and they were fighting back. First, they were fighting in that cemetery, and they pushed them into the center of the city of Najaf. And at the center of the city is the shrine. And the insurgents took refuge in the shrine because they knew that we couldn't attack the shrine because it was one of the holiest sites in Shia Islam. So they're there. And the plan was we couldn't send in Marines, but maybe Iraqi special forces could go in the shrine. So they're getting trained. They're supposed to go in the shrine. And just when the Marines think they're going to end the Mahdi army and the threat of Muqtada al-Sadr, that imam that you mentioned, Sistani, comes up and he makes a deal with Sadr, and they can't fight Sistani, and then the battle is over, and the Mahdi militia escapes, to fight and harass troops another day. And it's a good example, just like the Fallujah Brigade, of how this kind of counterinsurgency, if you've got to make a deal with these people and you're trying to win hearts and minds, you're often put in impossible political situations where you're telling the military, you're giving the military, nearly impossible and conflicting and changing goals.
Right. And it showed the kind of international character of a lot of the Iraqi war. Like it's in Iraq, but there's fighters coming into Fallujah and influence into Najaf from outside of Iraq, right? Wasn't it? I thought I read that there's like fighters from all over the world.
That's right.
Yeah, is that right?
That's right. So Sunni from Sunni countries, they're helping. So in Fallujah, it's mainly Al Qaeda in Iraq, run by Zarqawi, later killed by U.S. forces, and they are assisted by Sunni radical Sunni, Islamic jihadists from other countries like Syria, for example. And whereas in the South, the Mahdi militia, they're getting support from Iran. And so there's a lot of foreign influence there. That is quite true. Otherwise, these forces it couldn't really sustain these forces.
And so you interviewed these guys in 2007. It's interesting when you said one became a congressman. Have you followed their post-war lives at all, in addition
Well,
to the one you just mentioned?
a little bit, but what happened really is, so as I sometimes say, I promised these people in 2007 that I would get the show nationally broadcast. So I had to say, but I never said when, and now 17 years later, it is nationally broadcast. So I guess I fulfilled my promise. It shows you that whenever you get somebody to promise, you should get them to cite a date. But because it was broadcast now, we had a big screening in Washington at the Navy Memorial that my wife put together, and we invited all the veterans, and many came, and they were up and did Q&A after the film, and it was an extremely moving event for everybody who was there. And they were talking a lot about their experiences and what it was like. And I had not seen one or two of them I had been in touch with by text and email, but I hadn't physically seen them. And it was really actually great to see them. And now I've heard from a few more of them from via email. I mean, really, 17 years is a long time. I mean, I just heard from the Special Forces colonel who was in the film, who was great, and he's now retired, right, after 25 years as a special, in the military. Yeah, so a lot of them, those that were corporals and sergeants that were 18, 19, 20, now they've all had married, they have children. As one of them says, now I'm a little fatter and balder, but it's amazing to see their spirit there. One of them, Cuomo, who's I think now a colonel, but I think he was a captain in my film, or maybe a lieutenant. He said, and even now, he says, we're Marines. You can put us anywhere in the world, give us enough Marines, we could win any battle. We can't figure out the strategy of the war. That's the business of the Pentagon and our bosses. We're Marines, we could win any battle. I mean, it's that spirit I could still see in these men, and they're mostly men. There's one Special Forces Air Force woman in the film, and it was really inspiring to still see them. And some of them are still in service. Most of them have retired or done other things, but the spirit is there. Many of them have children that have gone into the service after them.
Interesting.
I mean, these are the people the country relies on to fight the wars and do our bidding. I mean, there's a culture there. I mean, I don't know about you, but in my family is not really a military family. My father was drafted, but in general, we're not a military family. I didn't have, until I made this film, I didn't have a lot of connections to the military, but it's inspiring to see them, and we rely on them. We need these people out there, risking their lives for us. We owe them a huge debt, especially the ones that actually have seen combat, especially the ones that have seen the intense combat of Najaf and Fallujah. And I'm pleased that PBS finally put it on the air and we can honor them and what their sacrifices in some cases and what they all did for us. So it was inspiring to see them. My children, I have three sons, now around 30 years old, and then in middle school and high school, and it was inspiring to them. My oldest son is now a DC police reservist officer, and I think his desire to do that, he would say, I think, comes from meeting these young Marines when he was just in middle school and high school. So I think everybody else in the country that isn't connected to the military should have some understanding of what that culture is like, what these people are like, what they're doing for us. I mean, we've got a lot of support from military families and people in the film, but it's really designed for everybody, for people, civilians with less connection.
Right, to see that up front and how maybe that's why the people at PBS didn't like this as a pro-war, is because they had this elan, this camaraderie, and a care for one another, and like working together and keeping the line. And it wasn't just a bunch of gung-ho mentality. It didn't, like, they're coordinated and working together and angry when they get wounded. And I mean, people died. Like you didn't show the ones who didn't make it, like because people didn't make it, right? Like I mean, I think you tallied the dead at 70 in one battle, and
And a huge more wounded. I mean, there are a lot of yeah. We did focus on wounded, as you say. This one Sergeant Panna, we show him after he got a bullet that went into his helmet, and luckily was only a wound and didn't kill him. They thought he was dead. And as you say, he's a Marine sergeant. And as he was saying, when you're wounded, he feels he let his men down because you're not supposed to get wounded. That's the kind of Marine attitude. I don't know that I would be able to say that. Um, but yeah, we should, the Hell House, surely we showed these wounded people. There's a famous, and at least among Marines, shot of one of them coming out holding his, wounded, still holding onto his pistol, buoyed up by two of his comrades. Yeah, and the comradeship is very impressive. You could really see it even in our screening. As they said, in some ways, they're closer to each other than their wives and family. They've gone through something really intense and really surreal. We don't stint the surreal, weird, netherworld aspect of the film. But yeah, the bond is really intense. Hard for those of us that haven't gone through something like that to imagine.
it was interesting. They had a reference to Kubrick and Full
Yeah,
Metal
yeah,
Jacket there, but you can kind of get that sense, like you went through something intense. It's probably like a psychological defense mechanism when you go through hand-to-hand combat or something like that, like to try to deal with the trauma or whatever, is to kind of tell funny jokes or sing
that's
songs
right.
or whatever.
We have some of that in the film too. That's right.
Right. What is the screening that you had? Is it, and this film is available now on PBS. I mean, they can watch it on your website or on PBS or on Amazon. Is it anywhere else?
Not yet. The
Okay.
PBS is distributing it. I think they intend to put it elsewhere, but at the moment it's just on Amazon, and it's really just on Amazon. But look, if they're pricing it at $2.99, that's an incredible bargain. I don't know why it's so priced so low, but whatever. It's good for your viewers. Um, so that's right. That's really the way to see it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
you can see the trailer on our website too.
I think, like you said at the intro, it's very important to see this because this is kind of what's happening in Syria and Gaza and other kind of warfare areas, Yemen, and it still kind of seems like it's going on, like this kind of like incessant kind of sectarian battling and stuff like that. Just
And
so,
the techniques of the insurgents in Iraq, you can see insurgents everywhere using. I mean, Hamas, for example, does behave similarly to the insurgents in Iraq. They shelter behind civilians, so that was a technique throughout this. When they're clearing Fallujah, they're knocking down doors, and they open the door, and is the person a civilian that they're supposed to help, or is he an insurgent? Do they have a hidden machine gun, or are they suicide vest, or so they have to help them, or are they a danger? And there's sheltering in hospitals and mosques. You can see that, and you can see Hamas doing that, just like Al Qaeda in Iraq was doing it. And these techniques are there all the time, used all the time, and the manipulation of the media to sort of make the Marines look like they're the aggressors. So at one point, PBS had asked us to remove this. Luckily, now they did not. Any of the sort of the beheadings that Al Qaeda in Iraq had done that motivated the second battle of Fallujah. But if you don't see the barbarity of the insurgents, you can't understand why the Marines act the way they do. If you only show the Marine action, not reaction, but not what they're acting against, it makes no sense. So insurgents are still behaving the same way. I think it's very relevant. I think there'll be this kind of warfare in the future. Really, this kind of counterinsurgency warfare is the most common warfare in the history of war. We think of the big wars, rightly, World War I, World War II, the Civil War. But really, the majority of wars from Roman times to today are these smaller insurgencies and counterinsurgencies, and we'll be fighting them, and others will be fighting them into the future.
I think you're right. Syria was kind of an insurgent overthrow too. Like, so this is within the last couple of years, so it's still kind of going on. This,
Indeed.
this type of warfare. The there was like one of the things about Fallujah is like you're talking about the barbarity of the insurgents. They were using Fallujah as a nexus point for arms and warfare and IEDs and all kinds of RPGs. I think you said in the film like 1 in 5 houses of a 300,000 population city had arms in there, like literal military arms, right? Something like that. So
You can see in the film them going to a house, and you can see the cache of arms that they're uncovering that they have to destroy. I mean, and it's not just a little; they're enormous. So yeah, it was very impressive, and that's what was left in Fallujah after everybody fled to Ramadi. So how much was in there before? Who knows?
it's a good point. So there's tons of arms there. There's a lot of sophisticated working with tanks and things like that. You had a tank gunner in there.
Mm.
So it's not just the kind of boots on the ground type people. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, they literally, I think they said they went through like every single house and broke down the door. Like imagine the clearing process of just that one city. It just had to have been incredible. Like to go through systematically go through the whole town.
And Fallujah is a pretty big city, so that's right. It's very, it was a very long, drawn out, and dangerous operation.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. So those are it. I would highly recommend people check this out. Really interesting. It kind of refreshed my memory about the post kind of Iraq war. We use the number 2003 as the invasion, but there's a lot that went on after that. This tells that story in two different places, Fallujah and Najaf. So people check it out on PBS or Amazon. Is there anything else you'd like to add or anything I missed? I mean, is there anything else you'd like to provide to the audience?
Yeah, so our older shows, in a way, Less 600 Meters is both new and old, are on our Manifold Productions website, as you mentioned earlier, manifoldproductions.com. And it can lead you to how to see them all. But our newer productions are on palladiumpictures.com. And we are currently doing a series of short documentaries in collaboration with the Wall Street Journal. The first 2 are on their website and are free, but you can find them on our website also, our work. And the first 2, one is about the worst anti-Semitic riot in American history, which was in Crown Heights, Brooklyn in 1991. And the other one is about the prime ministership of Liz Truss and her battle with their version of the administrative state, which she calls the blob, and her struggles and people who have other views of her. And we have 3 more coming out, so keep watching that space. One military one on the withdrawal from Afghanistan, sort of at the end of these wars, and 2 COVID ones, one on the trucker convoy during COVID, and one on Jay Bhattacharya and lockdown critics. And finally, we have an incubator program, which you can see up there on the Palladium website, where we want to train young, sort of right of center, non-woke filmmakers, and we give them a grant for a short film, up to $35,000 for a 15-minute film. We work with them all year with the executive producer. I'm right now, as I talk to you, I'm in Athens, Georgia. We're, looking at the editing of one of them with one of our incubator fellows this year. So we work closely with them, and we give them a chance to make a film. So these are really not for recent graduates from film school, but people maybe 1 or 2 films. Maybe they've done them for think tanks or other organizations, and now they want to make their own film. And this is a chance to do that and try a kind of film they haven't done before. So the application is open, and it's easy to apply. You just go to the Manifold Productions website and hit the incubator apply here button. So I invite any of your viewers who want to do it, or if they know anybody, either a friend or a maybe child that they know, or anyone that they think should apply, they should invite them to apply. It's easy, at least in the beginning. There are 2 stages, and the first stage is relatively simple.
Nice. So people check that. I will put a link to palladiumpictures.com And so people can check that out, and also Manifold. So all these other, you can see the links to 15 other documentaries. So if you're a documentary enjoyer, people who like documentaries, here's a whole new swath of documentaries you may have missed. So you can go check them out. I mentioned some of the titles in the intro. What's the one you did, or most recently? Was your most recent one about Clarence Thomas?
That's the most recent one on the Manifold website. Yeah, created equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. But these Wall Street Journal ones are somewhat more recent. They're shorter, they're only 30, 40 minutes. So they're easier to see, and they're free, so you don't have to pay even $2.99 to Amazon. Although I hope that viewers can afford that. And by the way, people can go to my X account, Michael Pack _, but I actually think the websites have way more information.
Gotcha. So, and you also see some links to your social media. Thought I
Yeah,
saw
that's
some
right.
links somewhere, so you can see Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
where's the best way if people want to follow up with you or have any additional questions or ask questions about the incubator thing? Where's the best place to reach you? Is it through one of your websites?
Yeah, both the websites have a way to reach out to us. I think the incubator one, would be through the Palladium Pictures website, and any other questions on the Manifold website.
Right. So there's contact information for
That's
both
right.
of those. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, that's a very
Okay.
thorough interview.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time, and thanks for finally getting this documentary out. Again, the full title of the documentary is The Last 600 Meters, The Battles of Najaf and Fallujah. And the documentary producer and director is with us today, Michael Pack. Thanks so much for your time. Stay there.
Thank you.
Stay there.